And you can hear me on stream? Yes, very good, thank you. Okay. And let's start by just see to it that you sit comfortably. You recognize the expressions of this moment. Let everything settle. There can be a sensation of everything slowing down. Just embrace that. And notice how all the bodily sensations are there. Thinking might happen. Just notice whatever comes up in this moment. If there is emotional content, bodily sensations, pleasant or unpleasant, doesn't matter. Just notice what is here now. You might be used to another meditation technique or have some kind of ideas of what meditation is. But for this guided meditation, just let go of that. Just recognize what is here now. Leave all your ideas of future or past or what the meditation is going to do for you or what you think of things. Just completely alert, noticing the present moment. Just recognize your state. Recognize the subtle unfolding of everything. Notice that even if you consider yourself have a particular emotional state, that the body's sensations are always changeful, always transient, always moving. And you can just rest in this stillness that is prior to everything. It's not a stillness that you have to find because it's always here. It just reveals itself in the acceptance of the present. You just allow yourself to be the space in which the experience unfolds. You don't have to touch any thought. Just stay as this alert awareness. You don't have to control or fix anything. Just recognize whatever is here. Don't push away any thoughts. Just allow the natural pace of everything, even thinking. If it happens, if a thought comes, you allow it to come. But you notice that there is thinking. This is the recognition of that deep stillness in you. Coming back and recognizing this awareness is the most precious thing that you have. The acceptance of the present moment as awareness is what determines the quality of life. It sounds like a big words, and you find out by yourself. Don't just listen to me, you find out. You find out what awareness does through your sadhana, through your practice, through coming back and recognizing this moment and allowing the naturalness of everything that unfolds in this moment. This deep recognition is what creates the quality of life. It's not difficult to find. It's always right here. This awareness of just being, this is freedom. And once you recognize it, you don't have to do anything. Just stay as you are. Because as soon as you touch the thoughts and you want to go with them and you want to create yourself as someone who becomes something, you lose it. So you just stay, recognizing thoughts, recognizing emotions. The relationship you have to yourself, what you think that you are, is most important, because that becomes a projection on all other relationships in the world. That is the lens in which you look at everything. And the more you recognize that everything comes from you, the more your interest will shift from the outer to the inner. Embrace the stillness of this moment. I know that staying here can feel disorienting. You notice how the mind is trying to grasp a thought or something. But you just stay. You just notice the mind's tendency to want something to happen. You just stay here. You're discovering the space in between thoughts. Being without becoming. As an alert witness to this experiencing. And if you get lost in thoughts, you just recognize that there is thinking. You can slowly open your eyes and notice that in this expression with open eyes, it's still the same. It's the same watchfulness, the same stillness is still there. And very, very gently and slowly move your body. Stretch out your hands perhaps, your arms a little bit. Stretch out your legs if you want to. But notice while you do that everything can still be observed. There's no difference when the bell rings. Mentally, we carry a lot of ideas. We think that we have to become something. We have to become better to be a good meditator. But as you move your attention from the outer to the inner, things will change. Not because you have an idea of how they should change, but they will. Because if you move your attention to what is inward, you have to face what is there. It's unavoidable. It's just an effect of looking. Because if you think that everything is caused by the outside world, you can always project into that. You can say, I feel like this because of this person, because of this event, because of that. And when you recognize that the view that you hold of yourself is what you project into the world. Why do I feel fine certain days and miserable others? The outer world might not have changed, but you think that you are something different. And the more obvious this part becomes, the more you understand that acceptance of my emotional states, of what is happening in my thinking, is the deepest act of self-love that I can do. We can talk about self-acceptance. It sounds very dry, but it's actually self-love. Because the deepest love also that you can give is just being and allowing beingness. You know your friend who is sad, heartbroken, or whatever. You can come with your advice and all the things and how to fix things and all that. But the most beautiful thing you can do is listen and just be there. Allowing the other person to be as they are, in their state, even if they're miserable at this moment. Just allow them to feel it, allow them to be with it, not reacting to it, not saying that something is wrong and trying to fix it. Just be there. And to have that capacity only means that you are okay with what is going on here. Because you can have all the strategies and all the ideas you want, but you will be forced in that, and you have to uphold them. If you are at peace, you will automatically transmit peace to others. It's unavoidable. You cannot even choose it. It will just happen. And when you hear about this, it might feel like a nice philosophy, but that is not the point of me speaking. The point is that you recognize, that you understand that you don't have to be fixed. There's nothing wrong with you. And if you recognize that stillness in you, you recognize that you are also the source of love. The love you feel with others, the recognition of the moments that you find so beautiful, you are the source of that. And healing doesn't come through fixing what is broken. It comes through accepting the present. And once you start to recognize that you are the source, you can just relax. Because you will no longer be pulled by the external world, which so many people are completely engrossed in the people around them and identified with situations. They go to their job and hope that their boss is in a good mood, so this is going to be a nice day. These kind of things. And they try to control their external world. But people don't like to be controlled. So it creates conflict. But if you go to the source, if you recognize your own part in all of it, and what part of awareness is in this experience, start to recognize the source. The human experience is a whole slew of things. Sorry, can you? The experience is a whole slew of things. There will come sorrow, there will come challenges. But the biggest part in it will be how you relate to those experiences. And even if you're very peaceful, life will not always be easy, but it will not be personal. But you have to understand what your part in all of this is. Because so many people are obsessed with controlling the external world. And of course, you should tell people when there is conflict or when there is violence. If you have a naturalness, you will also set boundaries, of course. But you have to understand that the frightened mind will act from fear, and a peaceful mind will act from peace. And even if you would say the same thing, if it comes from fear, people notice. And if it comes from love, people notice. And even if you say something that comes completely from love, it's not always that people like it. They can still be disturbed, they can still have their opinions, but you will be free. It will not create karma. It will not create more ideas of actions. And this is the naturalness of awareness. It doesn't mean that you're never angry or that you can never tell someone harshly something. You can. But where does that come from? Does it come from you being afraid, or does it come from love? This is a big, big difference. And it's so easy to read philosophies in meditation about ahimsa and non-violence and all these things. But to really understand what it is deeply is to recognize awareness itself. And to see where undivided love comes from. And you will notice when it creates peace in you, the surroundings will be a reflection of that. People that you think will never change will suddenly change. All these things are possible. I'm telling you from experience. The sliver that most people recognizes as their life is there because of expectations, the ideas that they project onto their world. And especially if you have a sense that the same things are happening in your life over and over. This is very much the case. But the more your mind broadens from just being, the easier it is for the universe to play with all the different experiences and all the different things to happen. And I know it's easy to believe in all these manifest your thoughts kind of books and all these, this very, it has a great magnetism to it. But recognize if you allow there to be space what happens. See that the universe can move its things however it wants. The less boundaries you put on it. And those boundaries are usually expectations. The idea of what my life should be. And if you have a lot of that expecting stiffness in your life, it is a very good practice to go to gratitude. Because gratitude is the opposite of that. And you can start very simple, just being grateful for this life, whatever you have. But move it into a bigger arena as soon as you can. And recognize the gratitude for all of it. Because this all-encompassing gratitude, the egoic mind has no grip in that. It cannot do anything with that, because you embrace all of it then. The egoic mind likes things to be divided and this or that. But as soon as you embrace all of it, you say everything is allowed in this moment. And that doesn't mean on an intellectual level that you cannot say no. It's not that kind of allowance. I just want to be very clear. It is the allowance that every thought is allowed to come. Even if it is a reaction of force. Do you understand this naturalness? I know that many people are confused by this. You have to notice, just allow the noticing of thoughts. That has nothing to do with the content of them. You don't have to realize that content or have a complicated relationship to that content. Can you understand these two levels? Let's see here. Oh no. Okay, let's explore this some more. I see that people seem hesitant. Because it's very easy to think in terms of the thinking mind. Most people have the experience that they are living their life, they're doing their things, they're having their strategies on how to relate to things. That is what we call the relative. That is the idea that I am the body, I am my thoughts, I have this personality, I have these ideas, I'm moving around in the world with them. My situation in my life is whatever has happened recently, and you refer to those ideas as your situation. But on the level of the absolute, all these things, on the level of awareness, all these things are just happening. There is no one that they're happening to. It's just a movement of things. And what makes them feel personal and makes them feel it's happening to me is what we call identification. That we identify with thoughts, we think that they say something about us, they have a deep inherent meaning somehow and say something about us, and then we believe in that thought. But as awareness, there is a space between thinking and the recognition of thinking. Suddenly you can notice, as I said in the guided meditation, you can notice that there is emotions. You can notice that there is thinking. And the value of those thoughts and the importance of them is how you are identified and how you relate to them. But all that relating to them, that most people just take for granted as a normal life, that identification with thoughts creates disentanglement between awareness and the relative. And you think that you are a person moving in the world. But if we look at it very, very bluntly, life is just happening. And when I say that you can move into gratitude of this, it just means to embrace all of it. But what the small content of the mind is, and how the idea of the egoic mind and how it relates to those thoughts, that is a very complicated game that most people are completely into. But what I am suggesting is that there is space and that you can observe that. And I think that all of you can recognize that you can notice thinking, right? Yes. You can realize that there is thinking, so therefore you cannot be thoughts. You have to be prior to thoughts. Because if you can observe something, if I can observe my glass, I cannot be the glass. I have to be the observer of the glass. And the same inside. If you can observe something as a phenomena, you cannot be it. You have to be the watcher. You have to be the witness of that phenomena. Right? Just so we agree on the same basis, so we can investigate this and see if what I say has any truth to it. Because if you can recognize that, then you notice from that plane. And I understand that you feel identified as someone watching. And you have the experience of the body and it feels like you are the body. I understand. But in this watchfulness, and if you embrace it fully, you will notice that there is a gap. And at first it will just feel like a great relief that there is observing. That instead of being entangled in all this stuff that the egoic mind is dealing with, you can watch it. In the beginning you will drawn into thoughts. You will some days feel like it's more spacious. Some days you will feel more identified. And after a while you will start to notice that it's easy to watch the mind. And many meditators that meditate for a while, they get stuck in this state because it's very pleasant. As soon as they meditate, they feel this space, they feel the stillness of the present, and they get stuck there. Because it's so nice not to relating to your experience, this stickiness of the egoic mind and the emotions, and to watch them instead. And this state is usually what most meditators get, they get hooked on. But when you come to that, there is also that you again have to merge back with the experience. You have to take it all in. And in that case, there is no longer an object and a subject. It just feels like experience is happening. And this is a very broad sense of talking about what will happen when you're exploring this, because the experience will be different for all of you. But in a broad sense, these things most oftenly happens. And in this watching, there starts to be this recognition that there is the difference between the relative and the absolute, or awareness itself. And it's not always that you notice how the changes in that happen. It will usually be revealed that you find your surroundings to have changed. You find people to be more pleasant or more open to you or nicer all this. This is usually how it is experienced, because we are not very good at understanding our own state. We're blind to it, usually. Even if there is positive change, we will point at the external world and say, oh, my family, my friends, or people around me are just treating me better or nicer. But that is the effect of you not being triggered. Because as we talked about in the beginning, it's also that the transmission of your stillness and you not being triggered by things is automatic. And you will sometimes just realize it by that you notice that the outer world seems to have changed. Any questions about this? Yes?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, I can't hear you. Do I have to do something?
Can you hear me now? Can you hear
Looks like your
me?
mic is on, but I can't hear you.
Okay.
Let's see if I have...
Test.
Oh, sorry. No.
Test. You can hear me?
Yes.
I would ask that you speak some more about the difference in quality between creating space from becoming or being the body and being the emotional energy, and creating space to watch it.
And what do you mean by creating space in this?
By that creating space, I mean what you have been talking about in terms of thinking or feeling, recognition of thinking or feeling being like a step, and then awareness. So creating the space to recognize something is happening.
Okay. Yes, sorry.
The question for me is around how can I honor and listen deeply to emotions that want to move through me, whilst, like, what is the difference between doing that successfully and not getting like lost in them?
Yes.
And then the other extreme of pushing them away, like, oh, now I just observe them, but it's not with an acceptance. Can you speak more about this?
Yes, because this is very common. As soon as you hear, I should not identify with my thinking and my emotions, you start to suppress your thinking and your emotions. Because most people only know how to relate to things through doing. Do you understand that? And not through being. They don't know what being is. Everything they feel like they take on is a doing. So this is what you have to explore. And that's why I'm so often say that you shouldn't believe what I'm talking about as a philosophy. It's so easy to do that you hear something nice and then you start to believe it as an idea. That is much more, much better to just recognize awareness itself. But if you don't know what that is, and that is about your question, how do I recognize what is what? how do I do this in the right way? But it's not really about that, because that kind of question is always from the egoic mind, because the egoic mind thinks in terms of right and wrong. And it's much more to experiment with yourself until you realize what it is to be. You have to try things, and this whole idea of doing it right is not good in meditation. It's not very helpful, because it makes you very tight and tense, and you think that there is something bad in not doing it perfectly somehow. But everyone who is trying to meditate is failing all the time. That is what meditation is mainly about. It's about failing, meditating, trying to meditate, failing at meditating, until you get so frustrated that you give up your stupid strategies that you're so identified with, and think that they work in every other situation, so they have to work in this as well. These are the difficulties with meditation, but it's also the beauty of it. But usually when we feel like something we're not doing it right, or something is going wrong, or we feel completely like giving up our practice, and all these things can be great breaking points. That is where meditation is great, because when you get frustrated and you try your things and you try your strategies, there is the opportunity to give them up. And notice the progression in meditation is only to notice what makes your mind quiet. If you notice that when I use a lot of force and I really set my boundaries very clearly, there's no more thoughts when it comes to that. But if you're not used to that, it might feel wrong at first, like you're hurting people, or they fight back a little bit, and you do. But you notice in your mind that it just becomes quiet from it. There is no continuation. There is no guilt with it. There's nothing. But it can has it when you change your behavior. It can has its little small tendencies. So the practice is on the level of the relative, but that is not the depth of it. It is in these very simple integrations, and you can sometimes try things, and if thoughts are very persistent in your life, okay, you dream of something or a specific thing, then you start to try it. Okay, I try to live this dream fully and just see what happens to it. And either you fail with it and you give it up because it's not possible, or the most beautiful way is when you fail with it because you succeed. If you succeed with something you like and it doesn't give you happiness, that is great, because it just reveals the nature of happiness itself. It is not external. And if you never question these things, you can just live a life where you just feel unfulfilled because you're spiritually unfulfilled, and you just project that into the next dream and the next dream and the next dream and the next dream, and you just do that for your whole life. Many people live like this. But if you question the source of happiness, if you notice that when you just completely give yourself to this moment and to the awareness and not touch anything else, you come to a space which is very fulfilling. And you recognize this and you come back to it. That's why I say this, when you come to that space, many meditators get very addicted to that. Because it's so nice, this recognition, there is spaciousness, it's expansive, it's so quiet, and you don't feel identified with your thoughts. But then comes the challenge to again invite the whole experience into that. Because there is still some resistance in this watching, in upholding this space between you and what you recognize. Did I answer your question, Rebecca?
Yes, and for clarification, when you use the word thought, this could also be, just any emotional state or intense physical sensation, tears, whatever, wailing. And it can be it doesn't have to just be still. It can be very...
Yes. And
just have this noticing.
And when we talk about this stillness behind the whole experience, because there is there is a sense that it feels like something quiet that is there, but in the relative or on the surface, there can be a lot of waves. There can come a lot of emotions, a lot of thoughts. It can be complete chaos. But if you are if you come back to the recognition of it and you stay there, it will just be like watching a storm when you feel really safe inside a house. It is nothing. So I think that many people confuse meditation with trying to make the mind quiet, trying to make the emotions go away. But it's much better to think of it like a very natural state, a natural relationship to all those things, to allow it to happen. And for example, sorrow is a good example, because many people have so much relationship. If your parent dies or something, some close family dies, you can have all these ideas of how long you should be grieving for, how you should relate to this sorrow, how it is to talk to other people about it, and all that. But there is a naturalness to it. There is a moment where it just feels like you sense the missing the person, letting go of them, allowing their death, and there comes tears very naturally. Nothing have to be forced. It will just happen. And you don't have to have a strategy with your emotions, and all these things just create a very, very complicated internal story that just makes emotions stick. And also with anxiety and what we refer to as depression, it's just also a very a big story about the feelings that hold them. And it starts to build its own momentum. You start to get afraid of having anxiety. All these that is just more stories. It's not the natural movement of emotions. So emotions just want to be felt. That is the whole thing. And when we say that emotion is wrong and it shouldn't be like this, we suppress them. And then they have a much greater hold on us. And as soon as we accept and just allow the emotion to happen, it can just have its course. There can come tears, whatever has to come with it. It can go into another emotional state that needs to happen, whatever it is. But there is a naturalness to it. But with all our beliefs about our ideas in our mind, and how feelings should be, and all this, and what we have learned usually from our parents, or we've seen behaviors when people get afraid of emotions and all these things, we start to have all these strategies, and we start to change, and the natural movement of it cannot happen. So it's very good to contemplate on these things and really ask yourself, is my behavior creating space and happiness in my life? What is it that creates true fulfillment? What is my idea of happiness? Because for many people, the idea of feeling happy is to feel excited. But the excitement is a longing for something to happen in the future. It's not really happiness. Happiness is deep contentment. And to really be with this moment as it is. Thank you. Someone else? Yes, take the microphone.
I have a question about being triggered.
Yes.
I had a really good day, and then something happened that triggered me. Like someone questioned my professionality, blah blah blah. And I got very triggered by this person, and so I got on the ride, how you say it, all the hooks that were sent out to like, oh.
Yes, you bought into it completely.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of energy to create this space between this, the thing that I have to give a really good answer back and blah, blah, blah. And what if people don't see that I defend my professionality, or I know I'm good at what I'm doing, so it's just to prove other people, and I'm thinking about if I should create a space and let it cool down, if I should go and jog, running or something, exercise to process it, or if I should just do nothing. So the question is, do you have recommendations for someone that get triggered and emotionally invested in this?
Yes, do your sadhana.
Well,
because the more you are aware of what is happening, the less you will be triggered. But it won't really be, for most people, the experience won't be like that. It would just be one day that you just stop being triggered. But when you have bought, I call it buying the ticket to the ride. When you have bought the ticket, when you have the idea that I have to prove myself in this, and what that person says something profoundly about me and my professionalism in this case, yes, then you have really bought the ticket, and then you have to go for the ride. And then the question is just, how do you deal with going on the ride? Because now it's emotional, now it feels very personal, now it feels infected almost. You feel infected by it. And you can go for a jog. You can do all these things to feel a bit better, and whatever you need to let it go and let it pass through your system. But usually when you bought it, it's going to be there for a while. The remedy is to not buy it. But since you don't recognize this trigger, you will buy the ticket. And you will buy the ticket until that day that trigger is no longer there. And that's why I say that that sometimes it's difficult to see when that changes. But you might remember that, oh, if this situation happened a few years ago, I would be completely triggered by this, but nothing happens now. You just smile, you just do your things. It's not, you don't feel that it's personal at all. And this is how it changes. So that's why that's why patience is needed with your practice. Because on the surface, it's easy to calm down. If you do your sadhana, if you sit half an hour every morning and every evening, your mind will calm down quite quickly. But that doesn't mean that all the triggers are gone. And one part of it will just be that if you do the practice, it will create peace while you're doing it. But the level we always want is, how do I change the deeper behavior? And that has to do with what you identify as, who you think you are. And when that starts to change, then everything changes. Because this peacefulness of just doing the practice, and many people can get stuck in that they just like the practice and they feel peaceful when they do it. If you see it as a tree, that first peacefulness is just in the leaves and the outer branches. But as soon as you start to question the source of it, who is the meditator? Who is trying to find peace here in your practice? Who is trying to be better, a better meditator, whatever it might be? And you start to look for that source. And you might at first say, is this body, is this personality, is these ideas of this person? But all those phenomena can be observed. And you might recognize in your sadhana, in your practice, that there is a stillness that doesn't seem to have much to do with the thoughts and the emotions and the experience of the body. There's just space. And the more you recognize this, the more it will be natural for you to relate to the world through that. And then you have a place of peace to come back to. And the more you recognize that, then you start to be interested in, oh, when I'm at the supermarket standing in line, I might as well. Or I'm waiting for the bus, I might as well just sit, do nothing. And you recognize that this deep state of nothing, of this stillness, is your nature. And you start to relate to everything through that. So, how to deal with your triggers is to do the sadhana, to do the inquiry, and to practice. And it will change. And then how to relate to when you've been triggered. You had a whole slew of ideas. Go out for a run or just sit with it. You can just try and sit with it. It usually still wants to, like the ride has its course. So if you're triggered, yes. So emotionally, it will feel stuck and it will be there for a while. And you usually have to go for the ride. That's why I call it a ride. It's like a roller coaster. You have to go with the ups and downs of it. And then at some point, it's done.
What is sadhana?
Sadhana just means your practice, your meditation practice.
How often should I do it actively? Like, should I sit?
You should sit at, if you never had a practice, you can start with a short practice once a day, like 15-20 minutes is good to start. And when you feel comfortable with that, and depending on your how challenging that is, if it feels easy, you can make it half an hour quite quickly. But if it feels very challenging, maybe you should do 10 minutes instead. It's very different for different people. And when you feel comfortable with that after a while, You work it up until half an hour, and then you can add another half an hour in the evening. But that should be the extent of your formal sadhana. I don't think there's any need for any more than that. If you come back to it 2 times a day, that is great. Because then you have to recognize that repeatedly, and 2 times a day is just great. If you have that as a routine, it's very good. And also sit on the days where it feels challenging and it's not. It doesn't feel very nice. It's also good to sit on those. And in the beginning, you should feel comfortable with it, and it should feel easy, not forced.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to the 15 minutes tomorrow.
Yes, very good. Very good. And it's also good, as you have done, to just listen to the subject, so you know a little bit about it, you know a little bit about what might happen when you practice, and then start to do the sadhana, start to do the practice. And always this space that is created for this is also made for you to come with, when things happen in your practice, to just share them and say, yeah, this is happening. I'm wondering if this is good or bad, or I'm unsure about this, or I feel confused about this. All these things. Always welcome to ask questions, of course. I think it's a very common idea that you always think that more practice is better. I think it's a very common idea among meditators. But sincere practice is the best. If it really comes from your heart and you really feel for the sadhana, and it is a part of what you're longing for, then it's the most beautiful. It is in alignment. It's not in something that you have to force or add. It is a practice to promote freedom, not rob you of it. And I will say that more people than you think will rob their freedom by doing the practice too rigorously or trying too much. See what creates space in you. See what creates freedom. And with that, I still want you to practice, even though one day you feel very anxious or something. Just see what it is to still sit with that. See what it does. See how it calms down. See how it changes. See if you can find your bearing even on the days when you feel not balanced. And the more your practice get established, the easier it feels. It sometimes it would feel it's impossible that I can find peace this day, and you will sit, and after 30 seconds, everything that you thought was heavy and is gone. All these things are possible. Yes.
You said that even if it's a tough day or something like that,
Yeah.
but I feel it's the opposite. Maybe it's for other people as well, but when you're very happy, you're in a good day shape form.
Yes.
You have a good week. Then it's like, why should I go meditate? I'm feeling so well.
Yes.
I don't need it.
Yes.
So my question is maybe, how do you motivate yourself? How do I motivate myself to do this sadhana even
When you feel really good.
Yeah, and I feel, oh, I don't need it.
Yes, because it is not a cure like that. It's not a cure for your bad days. It is a tool to recognize yourself, to know yourself. So that is where it comes from, not as a fix. And it just shows the idea that you have about it. That you have the idea that I do the meditation to feel good. I want to fix the bad days. But the depth of meditation is not like that. It's not a quick fix. It's a momentum of stillness. And that is the difficult part in keeping up your sadhana. Also that you might do it for a while and then you start to just feel really good. You feel really good all the time. Why should I do my meditation? I just feel amazing. Nothing much touches me, nothing. And then after a time, the mind creeps in again and you start to feel your old tendencies after a couple of months and like, okay, I have to go back to it. and you can play that game or you can understand the deeper part of it. That's why I mean that you need to be sincere with it. You have to look beyond it as a quick fix for bad days. It's the recognition that you are awareness itself. This is the depth of meditation. And there is a longing in everyone for that. But that is usually distorted into the longing for something specific. To just be free from depression, to be something. It has taken that shape, that longing is recognized as that. But the deeper you go, the more you will notice that longing is just a longing for awareness to know itself. Is the core of it. You can call it, on the personal level, you could call it the longing for happiness. But on a specific level, it is awareness longing of knowing itself. Okay, thank you. Meditation can take so many shapes. It can look like so many different things. When you start meditating, it feels like there is a great smorgasbord of things to take from. So many different paths. You can do mantras, I can do this, I can do it in combination with yoga and tantra and this and this and this and this. And the more you practice, the more you notice is that there is no difference. Everything leads to the same thing. To recognize the present moment as it is. Awareness, recognizing awareness. And it will be clearer and clearer what is lacking. If you have a tendency, if you have a resistance to some part of your spirituality, it will stand out like a sore thumb. And the sadhana is only difficult from the egoic mind's point of view, because it wants results. It wants to compare one thing to the other. It wants all these things. But the practice itself is very simple. It's just to be as you are. Not touching any thoughts, not trying to become. But the problem is that we don't know that we're doing it. You don't know when you're triggered. You don't realize the moment. You realize after, oh no, I have bought the ticket. I've gone on the ride. I didn't even notice buying it. It just happened. And when you sit in your sadhana and you notice the mind, it will feed you all these things, all the things that trigger you, and you just keep observing. And suddenly your relationship to it has changed, and you start to rest as awareness. You don't feel like you are not. It is a non-doing. You understand? Can you understand that? It is a non-doing. It's not an action that you take. It's that you stop doing. It's like you take one of those inflatable beach balls and you hold that underwater. Have you tried that? It's really, really difficult. You just want to come up all the time. But you have done that for so long that you say, this is normal. This is what I'm doing. I'm keeping this inflatable beach ball under the water. And then you come to me and you say, why am I so tense? Why am I hurting? Why is it so difficult? Why is everything a struggle? And I say, you have to let go of the inflatable beach ball. And you say, but I don't know what to do. Because it is a non-doing. It's a stop. It's just stop doing it. But since you're so used to the behavior, it's just there. So this is why we observe ourselves. So that they don't sneak past you anymore. These triggers. This mechanical, automatic behavior. And that's why awareness is our most precious thing. To just be alert, to just be with the present moment and accept it. This is what determines the quality of your life. And for the egoic mind, it feels like a small thing. The present moment, to be aware of it. What is that? What can that do? That is everything. That is what holds everything. Everything happens in the present moment. Even the thoughts about the past and the future. They're all happening in that. Every emotion that you experience happen in that. There is nothing else. But many people recognize they don't care much about what is going on in the present because they're so completely obsessed with what is happening later. And the most difficult one to deal with for most people is the idea of hope. That is going to get better later. Something is going to be resolved. But this is also a projection in the future that makes you being less with what is. And all of your happiness, all of your sense of fulfillment is in the present. But it's just obscured by the ideas of the mind and expectations. And I know that there are very few places in society where we talk like this. So it's so easy to believe all that other stuff. All the ideas about past and future and what they do to you. And what you have to have, or all these mental ideas or ideals. But explore the present. See what it is. See if it is, like many people say, that it's just the present is the sliver between the past and the future. It's just a little thing. Or see if it might be that everything happens in the present. There is nothing else. You contemplate on it, you look at it, and you try it. You put it into action. You make it into your life. You take a moment every day or 2 times a day and recognize this space and see what it is. Go to the source of the idea of the person and stay there. Even if it feels personal, even if you don't find, you say, I don't find any awareness, I just find a body and ideas and thoughts. Then go to that. Stay with that until you notice that you can observe that. And see what is the first expression of this I. What will you find? And you might have heard, if you have listened to anything about or read anything about non-duality, you have heard about self-inquiry. And it sounds like, some say, yes, it's like the formal meditation of the non-dual traditions, is this self-inquiry. But it's just a question, who am I? How is that really a practice? That is just the source, that you're just checking what the source is. Who is this experience happening to? All these thoughts lead to that same source. The impersonal beingness. But if you think that you are something else, examine that. Look at it. See if it's truly there. And you might say, but I don't find anything. That is right. Because at the center of your experience, there is no one. Your expression is just happening. And if you notice yourself from this stillness, you notice that it just unfolds spontaneously. That there is no need for the egoic mind to say, I am getting up now, I am getting a glass of water, I am going to the bathroom. It can say that, but that is not what creates the action. It just happens. Recognize that. The egoic mind takes credit for everything. It says, I am pushing your life around. I am making all your chores. I am going to work. All this. But that then you have to deal with that as identification. It's all just happening. And the less personal it is, the freer you will feel from it. If you feel that you have to do the dishes and you feel like your partner should have done the dishes and now you're doing it and you can have all this long mental exercise of how much you're a victim of doing the dishes. Or there can just be doing dishes happening. Notice it. Notice when you identify with things and how you suffer them. And notice that in certain situations you don't think about it, it just happens. And some people say, I love doing dishes at other people's houses, but I don't like to do my own dishes. Because they just haven't created patterns of identification there. So it just feels free and easy, and everyone is so appreciative of it. We just play all these games of identification without recognizing that we create those patterns. And for some people you create a pattern in a place. So every apartment you move in, it feels very nice and free at first. And after 1 year, it feels completely like the walls are caving in and you have to move again. And some people just move and move and move because they identify with their patterns like that. And I'm not saying that any behavior is good or bad. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about just recognize all these things. You can observe it in yourself, and when you start to observe, it will also be natural to observe others. And it's not to judge them, it's just to understand. Okay, this behavior leads to this. And there is no difference between you and others, so you can also just take that experience and it will become your own. And that is sincere meditation. Not trying to impress someone by sitting many hours a day or doing some rigorous things. If you have sincerity in your practice and you really focus on those things and you notice what makes your mind quiet, those are the things that really work. Any more questions before we end today? Full clarity? Happy to hear that. Let's sing something. He he Govinda, he he Gopala, he he Govinda, he he Gopala, he Vasudeva, He Nityananda, He Vasudeva, He Nityananda, Shri Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe 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 Shama. Shri Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe 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 Shama. He he Govinda, he he Gopala, he he Govinda, he he Gopala, he Vasudeva, he Nityananda, he Vasudeva, he Nityananda, Shri Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe 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 Shama. Shri Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe 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 Shama. He he Govinda, he he Gopala, he he Govinda, he he Gopala, he Vasudeva, he Nityananda, he Vasudeva, he Nityananda, Shri Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe 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 Shama. Shri Radhe Radhe Radhe, Radhe 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 Shama. He he Govinda, he he Gopala. May all beings recognize the peace of awareness. May there be peace for everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Give a donation if you can. Thank you.